introduce our speaker, Amita Deshpande. Amita, she is the co-founder and director of Recharkha, which is a social enterprise based in India that upcycles plastic waste using a traditional charkha and handloom. And in the process, this organization creates livelihood opportunities for women and youth from the tribal pockets in India. Amita brings with her over 14 years of work experience in sustainability and corporate social responsibility, both in India and US. Hi, Amita. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Prachi.
I can see that you're being the
Welcome.
true entrepreneur and traveling and doing the Zoom
Yeah,
meeting.
I know. So this is an entrepreneur's life. I am not in a, like nicely confined space in my office, but I'm outside the exhibition hall where we are displaying our products.
I see.
Because obviously I have to wear different hats. So I was right at the stall selling my products and explaining them, and now I'm here outside the hall in beautiful Hyderabad today.
Perfect,
So yeah,
perfect.
only if I'm just praying that it doesn't start raining because I
Oh,
wanted to stay outdoors, not
right,
hold up
right.
somewhere inside.
Right, let's hope that it doesn't rain. So, to start off, why don't you share with us what really inspired you to leave this cozy corporate world and become an entrepreneur? And, like, what was the motivation behind picking up waste management as a cause? And how did Recharka really come about?
Sure, sure. So since landed up after my IT, like I'm an IT engineer originally by education. So after that, I landed up in an IT, and every day I used to keep doing, to do going coding and making programs. But on the larger picture, it wasn't fitting anywhere. And what you need from a job is when you come home, there's some sort of satisfaction. And since childhood, I always has had this passion of conserving the environment, working outdoors in the nature and working with people from the grassroots because I come from a tribal area in India. So I always was very much close to that. And here I was in a corporate company, closed from all sides in an AC office. So it wasn't making a lot of sense to me. So I kept pursuing my voluntary activities. So every weekend I used to go out and work with the NGOs and do all kinds of cleanup drives, things like that. And even in my own company where I was working, I started a club which was called the Freedom. Okay, so like freedom, and we started doing a lot of environmental conservation activities. And so people used to see me doing that more than working, and that's when I realized that that's what I want to do. And my bosses were totally supportive of that. So actually with a very good because letters, recommendation letters from them, I got a master's degree program in the US, which was focused in business management but in sustainable development at the Purdue University, Indiana. And that's where I jumped out of the corporate world. I went there, I studied. Still I was in the corporate world, working ended up joining some CSR company after that in Chicago, but I was a little lesser than the IT world. I moved back to India in 2013. And then I was like, I worked a few months in Summit also. That's how Prachi and I know each other. But after, a few months in Summit, I was like, no, I have to go out there in the, in the society and work, and not in an AC office in Mumbai again. And that's what I did. So I came out, I started working as a consultant, freelancer for a few years, and then eventually started upcycling plastic waste. Because Prachi, at that point in time in 2015 approximately, not a lot was being done in the waste management sector. It was just coming up, and majorly plastic waste was being recycled, not upcycled, and only that kind of waste was getting recycled, which has a good value. But what we decided to work on was the waste which did not have value. And there's this whole waste pickers community in India. Not everybody must be aware of that. But these are the people who are actually going and working and picking up waste, segregating it, and selling it. Okay, that's what they do for their living. But the waste which was left behind were all kinds of wrappers, all the chips and cookies that we all eat and throw away, or grocery bags which are very thin. So this kind of waste is not of any use to these waste pickers, so it was just thrown away. So that is the waste we picked up, and we decided that this is what I'm going to work on, because this is a problem and it is being used the most. The most widely used waste or plastic is the grocery bags or wrappers packaging. That's how I got into the waste management sector from an IT company where I was working.
Okay, I think it's really refreshing to see that you really took that leap of faith and you went on to pursuing what you truly believed in. So I feel like it's also the right time for us to sort of segue into the crux of this session. So since you've already started talking about upcycling, why don't you walk us through the whole process of upcycling step by step? Also
Sure.
share with us how are you going about empowering the youth and women through your social enterprise and integrating the traditional handloom in your business model.
Sure, sure. Should we show them the video, Prachi?
Yeah, we can share the video now.
I think that will be great because then I can walk them through the process through the video itself.
Okay.
There you go.
Let us see how this turns into this.
So all these plastic bags and wrappers are first collected from waste pickers. We wash and sanitize all of this plastic waste, sort them into different colors because these are original colors of the waste. You don't dye them. Manually cut each and every plastic bag and wrapper just using it. And then we use traditional equipment called as a charkha and hand weave all this plastic waste together and make fabric from it. So these are our tribal women and youth working in the village where we make fabric, and in our Pune workshop, we actually stitch them into beautiful bags and home decor products and lot of items. Thank you. Thank you, Jocelyn. So that's what we do. We upcycle plastic waste. What I mean by upcycling is making something better from what it was before. That's what upcycling is. It is recycling in one way, but it's making something better, from what it was. And the process we decided to employ, because I never wanted to get into the typical recycling business where you're melting the plastic waste and creating toxins which will then get released into the environment. So somewhere I always had this idea that the process itself should be sustainable. So I don't want to create another kind of waste by recycling one kind of waste, right? So that's how I chose this particular process. And one of the most important aspects of this is also that it creates employment, it creates jobs. And in a country like India where there are 1.4 billion people, and more than 50 to 60% are still living in rural areas, and rural areas do not have any other source of livelihoods rather than farming. And farming is a job that is done only during the monsoons most of the times, like more than 50% of the times. Especially these tribal people, tribal areas, they don't even have so much of land where they can farm and sell their produce. Whatever they farm is only for themselves. So we chose this particular village. There are obviously thousands of villages, but we chose this particular village where we want to start working because it was close to my heart. I come from, place nearby, and we decided to work there. We employed tribal women and youth, especially because youth are in that specific age group where they are ready to leave the village. And then they will unfortunately end up in cities where they have to live in slums. So many of you must have already seen how conditions in slums are in India and some other countries. So, to avoid that, why don't we keep them back in the villages, employ them, and get them some kind of employment, which is conserving the environment. So the eco-social cause was very important to me since the beginning, and I wanted to keep that as at the core of the whole organization.
I think it's so great to hear that you're basically using something which is so basic like a plastic, which could have otherwise ended up in landfills, and then converting that into some really useful day-to-day products like handbags and laptop covers. And I think you already touched upon the upcycling, but I would also want to know a little bit, and if you could tell us what really are the benefits of upcycling versus recycling. And we also heard a lot about circular economy. So why don't you tell us how your business really aligns circularity for a sustainable plastic waste management?
Sure, sure. So, what happens is in upcycling, you are creating a product which is better than the earlier product, like a carry bag, like a grocery bag. You use it for a few minutes. So, the world average says that a plastic bag or a poly bag is used only for 20 minutes. But it is made to last forever, right? It was made so that people could use it forever. Now it's been thrown away. So if it gets recycled, it could also get downcycled into something which is not used for a long period of time. But in our case, we make products from it, which are, durable, which can last a longer time. So definitely this is not a solution. I will never vouch that, you can keep using plastic and we will keep upcycling it. That's something that I don't want to say, because this is just a temporary solution, that it's going to get converted into something which you can use. Otherwise, you would have gone and bought it from shopping malls, again made from resin or other kinds of plastic. So instead, here you're using something which is made from waste plastic. That's number one. The second is circular economy. It's a very important point, Prachi. That when you're talking about circular economy, you actually talk about where does it end up, and how can it then be again utilized to uh, get again converted and run into circles. So plastic, actually speaking, is a very, very versatile material, and it can be reused, reused, reused several times. But only the problem is the disposable use of plastic. That is the most unsustainable. Now, when in our case, we are taking plastic waste and we are upcycling it, we're trying to close the loop by, first of all, making it into a fancy product which can be used multiple times. And at the end of its life cycle, it can again be recycled, because nothing happens to the plastic. So we are also collecting back all the products which are sold to customers, and then we upcycle that plastic again. That's how we are trying to, weave in this circular economy concept in our work. And apart from that, we are also doing a lot of awareness generation amongst people that don't use disposables, don't use packaged items, or let's find an alternative to these packaging items. So working with we are trying to work with corporates as well, to come up with sustainable packaging solutions for them. So I think that's where, we are trying to work in the whole circular economy concept as Recharka.
Right. Since you already touched upon corporate partnership, would you like to share some of your past experiences of working with the
Sure.
companies there?
Sure, sure. So for example, this was about 4 years ago, when the owner of Parley in the biscuits, the confectionaries, they approached us that they want to make some products for gifting purposes for their friends and family, for corporate gifting. So we decided that, I asked her that, it's actually it's funny that, we are creating so much of waste, and then what if we use that waste to make these products? And she loved that idea. So we actually got a lot of wrappers of their waste, of their plastic waste, and we wove it and made some beautiful bags for their friends and relatives. So in a way, we are helping them upcycle all of this plastic waste. So it's definitely not a solution, again, like I said. But these kind of things that we can do is work with corporates, work with upcycling their waste, and make custom products which can be then gifted, sold worldwide.
Right, right. So it is promising to see that there is this building appetite among corporates to sort of do their part.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And then
yeah,
and there's this concept called EPR now in India, extended producer responsibility. I don't know if it's the same in Singapore and other countries, but companies in India have that mandate that they have to take care of the waste that they generate, even post consumer waste. Wherever there is their name and label on it, they have to take care of it. So that becomes a mandatory thing then for everybody, and it makes things better for us.
Right. I think that was something I was going to touch upon. Being a policy analyst myself, I wanted to know if there are current policies that support your stream of work. And if so, now that you've already touched upon EPR, are there still challenges that exist? And are there ways that we
Yeah,
can sort of implement these policies in a better way?
totally. See, the problem exists only like the problem exists in the disposal of waste.
Right.
So when people throw away their waste, if it's not segregated properly and if it's not collected in a segregated manner, later on segregation becomes a big problem. In a country like India, where we have so many people, it the waste management industry is very much run by hands, right? Because they have to sit and segregate by hands. So here it is somewhat sustainable and successful, but again, that those are not the best conditions we want people to work in, right? So if we can improve the way we dispose plastic waste, segregate it at home, segregate it in different materials, understand the materials that we are using, then it goes to the waste because it becomes easier for them to sort it further and send it to recycling. So that particular gap between of awareness generation is where policy should work on more. So right now EPR is working a lot on collection, but
Mhm.
they're not working on this awareness generation bit. If they do that, then I think it will make life of the waste pickers much easier, life of waste management companies easier, because it's not so simple here in India, because more than 50 to 60% of the waste is still organic waste. It is not plastic waste or inorganic waste like in other countries.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point that you made there about where the loophole really exists in terms of policy. Now, moving on to something that every aspiring social entrepreneur struggles with, how do you really go about striking a balance between financial returns and creating a sustainable impact?
That is a little difficult for us too, because I, being who I am, like more like an activist, I get carried away in all these activities of awareness generation and have to be pulled back, and my team does a good job of doing that. So I think that balance has to be struck somewhere. Somebody in the team should be obviously an activist too, because that's where your vision is going to go to. But we are also trying to balance it by the fact that we've just launched an NGO. So through the NGO, we are looking at raising some funds and grants for the awareness activities. So once we have that in place, I think the balance will be clear. And we want to tie up with more organizations across countries, people across countries, who will help us market our products everywhere. In so for example, in Singapore, we have a partner who sells our products at the Green Collective shop at the KGM Mall. I think it's the KGM Mall. So some place in Singapore called the Green Collective. He helps us sell our products there. But we are looking for such kind of people so that the balance is achieved. So Reach Arka in itself is a movement which is trying to achieve this whole change in behavior, change, transformation in behavior. But the products also need to be there and need to be sold so that we can get the required income for the awareness generation activities and to sustain the livelihoods of the people who we have in our team. We have 25 people. So it becomes a big challenge to make sure that we keep earning for them. Like what I'm doing right now. My colleague is there selling the products, and I'm here talking to all of you, trying to raise awareness. So that's the balance.
Right. Looks like a shared responsibility between
Yeah,
the team
yeah.
as well. Okay. Before I open up the session to the viewers for questions, there's one more thing that I'd like to know from you. Having worked in the space for so long, what do you think have been your learnings that you would like to share with our community and our set of eco-social entrepreneurs,
Sure.
specifically the female entrepreneurs in this space?
Sure, sure. So I'll answer your last bit first. So
Okay.
being a female, actually, it makes it much easier for us to, empathize with this whole eco-social concept. Okay. And I have been asked this question many a time. What were your challenges as a female entrepreneur? I actually say that ac- being a female entrepreneur has been a benefit for me rather than any challenges. Because first of all, being a female Of course, there are family responsibilities and things like that, but my family has been very supportive. So, really thankful to them that I'm here right now. So I got a lot of support from my family. So that's most important for a female and a woman entrepreneur to get. Once you have that step past, then you really can go wherever you want. And first of all, being a woman, you can empathize with the whole concept, with the social concept as well as the environmental concept. Earth is female, right? So it's really, really important that, and I'm happy that there are so many women entrepreneurs here. Secondly, I always urge, no matter whatever field people open or start their businesses in, I always feel that every business should look at the triple bottom line. No matter you're into the pharmacy industry or in healthcare, you're in engineering, always look at the triple bottom line. So that is something I would urge everybody to do. Whatever you're starting up, if you're starting up some food product, and then what if you can use sustainable packaging for it, or bring in organic food into it. So these kind of thoughts I always suggest people should consider. Thirdly, it is a difficult path. You have to have patience and you have to have consistency. I know so many of my friends who started being an entrepreneur and then had to leave in between because they didn't have the patience. So I have been doing this for the past 8 years now, and I think it's extremely important to have patience. It's interesting. You have to have that focus. Also, don't sway too much. Stay on the path. Stay on the cause that you want to work on. So being eco-social, being a happy female woman entrepreneur, and the third is being persistent with what you're doing.
I can totally vouch for your persistence. I've seen how persistent you were since the time I've known you from Samhita, and it has definitely reaped benefits for you in the process. So yeah, I definitely resonate with that and totally vouch for that quality in you. We do have a question from Erin. Erin, would you like to ask this question, or do you want me to ask this question to Amita?
Go ahead, Prachi. Thank you.
Okay. So Erin wants to know, what do you see as the future of circular economies here in Asia? And what trends excite you or scare you?
That's a very good question, Erin. I think circular economy has to be there in everything. So there can't be a separate circular economy concept. Circular economy has to be woven into everything that is being manufactured. That's where the EPR and all these policies come into the picture, right, Prachi? So I feel that is the future. That has to be the future, and it has to start now. And it has to come from within. And if the entrepreneur brings that in the business, then actually it gets ingrained in each and every person that is working with you. So I think that's extremely important. And something that is a little scary for me is that under this whole circular economy or green economy concept, a lot of people have started coming up with greenwashing initiatives and greenwashing activities. I really urge, and I urge that people like us who are working in this really ethically and really with our heart in it, we are the ones who should come up with all these awareness activities. And the most important thing is to make the consumer aware. That's where I am trying to put my own effort in, that if the consumer knows what he or she is buying, they know the story behind it and they ask the story behind it, then actually sustainability, circular economy as a concept will really become successful. So it can't be top down. Policies have to be there. Policies need to be there, because only then industry will be on a little tight leash, I would. But consumer is the one who has to make the choice. And all of us need to work on making the consumer aware. Though it takes time, it's okay. We are trying to train people on, upcycling and how they can separate their plastic waste. Now more people have started working in this sector and started doing exactly what we do. But I think it's okay. We just need more people who are doing the same thing. It's fine.
Sure. So there's another question from Zinni. She wants to know, are there any other types of waste you might consider for upcycling apart from plastic?
We want to actually get into a lot of other types of waste, say fabric waste. Fashion industry creates a lot of waste, so we want to get into that. Other kinds of plastic which we are not using right now, we definitely want to get into all of that. We are using some other things like those posters and flex banners which are
Mhm.
actually made of PVC. We
Yeah.
use that for various things in our own products, like for our planters we use that as the inner lining to give it a little flexibility. We use it in our bags also. We also use fabric waste to a certain extent to create handles for our products. So we are getting into all of that, but again, whenever I see and look at the problem of waste in the larger perspective, biggest problem is the waste that we are trying to tackle, which is the multi-layered plastic and the thin plastic, because it is still the biggest problem. No other, so unless and until we try to solve this problem first, we wouldn't go into the other waste materials on a larger scale. We would try to incorporate in our existing work itself.
Right. I think there was one question that I wasn't able to ask you during our conversation, but probably I can touch upon right now. With like COVID, how did that impact your work and your team, and what were the kinds of mitigation measures that you sort of put in place to make sure that the
Sure,
business was more resilient?
sure. See, um, COVID has impacted our market. That has been the worst hit aspect of our business, and obviously that is what drives our sales. And we are not funded by any NGO like a funding agency or anything. We are self-funded and we are self-sustainable. So that definitely made a really it was a big blow for us, and this whole last year was really difficult for us to sustain. But our supporters, our customers came in, stepped in. They supported us even when the lockdown was there and we couldn't ship products. People still placed orders and they were happy to receive them at later after the lockdown lifts. So I'm really thankful and grateful to all of those people. One very interesting thing happened, Prachi, was that the sort of the, I would say, what I had envisioned, that the people in the villages should remain in the villages. They shouldn't go to cities and work there as migrant laborers. That aspect really, we won in that aspect, because all our workers were local.
Right.
They didn't have to, had not left their villages and had come to us to work. And the whole of India and the industry found it a big challenge because all their workers went back to their villages. In our case, our people were in their villages.
Mm.
So where really COVID wasn't there. So they
Mhm.
could continue their work even from home a little bit, or went to the wadi a little bit and worked from there. So I think I'm very happy with the fact that I was very stubborn on this fact that I want to work in a village and employ only villagers from that village, which worked out good for us. But I think local jobs and creating local jobs is extremely important, rather than uprooting them from some other place and placing them somewhere else, which actually had caused the biggest problem during the COVID crisis. And yeah, we had to also close down our earlier organization. It was called Arohana Eco-Social Developments. So that was one other, setback for us. But we popped back up with Recharkha, and we did I think we're doing much better than what we were before COVID now.
Right, right. And in terms of just knowing what is the kind of profile of the women and the youth that you create employment for, are these
Sure.
people who are full-time mothers working with you all, or students finishing college, just fresh out of college? And what is the kind of training that they undergo before they join?
Sure.
Recharkha?
See, the women in our tribal village are totally from that village. And most of them are not educated also. Okay, they've never gone to school, or even if they've gone, they went to like 6th standard or 8th standard. Some of them are school dropouts who completed their 12th grade and then stayed back. Some of them are mothers, some of them are single girls who have just dropped out of college and school and come back to work with us. We also have one man who is deaf and mute by birth, and he's been living in that village, and as a result he never had an opportunity to study or work anywhere else. So he's been working with us for 5 years. So I think it's a mix of people. But in the tribal village, these people do not have any other source of livelihood. Only for 4 months in the year, they do farming, and that is only for their own family. So they grow rice for their own food. And after October or September, October, they don't have any source of income. So these are the people who work with us, but they work on a full-time basis. We don't just outsource it to them. They work as employees and we pay them a monthly salary. That's what we believe in, because only then their families can run on our work and on our livelihood that we create. In the Pune city office, we have a few tailors who come from, who are artisans, who are trained artisans who make the bags for us. A few slum dwellers who work with us as helpers. And then the staff is all made of people like you and me, who are, career changers, who are passionate for this cause. They wanted to work with us. So they have joined. So we have 6 such beautiful people who are working with us in our team, who have taken a cut in their salaries, because obviously we can't pay them like how they used to. But they're working with us, and they're wonderful people. Because of them, I'm here. That is what I would love to say.
Great, Amita. Just to wrap up this session, I
Yes.
would also just want to know, like, as a conscious consumers, what do you think would be those 2 tips or something that you'd like to share with all of us for us to become more conscious consumers?
Sorry, say that again. There's little bit
What
of.
would be those things that you would want to tell us or share with us for us to become more conscious consumers?
Sure. Like I said earlier, asking why, what, and how are the basic 3 questions, and who, are the basic 3 questions you must ask before buying anything. So trying to understand the story behind whatever you buy, because you, the consumer, are the king. You are going to decide what the market is going to be tomorrow. So if you start choosing consciously, the manufacturers are going to make that. So everything is in our hand. It's a huge responsibility, Prachi.
See that, yeah. Thanks, Amita. I think this has been a really enriching session. Before we end the session, we do have a few questions. We're trying to run a poll, so I'd request all the participants to enter in their responses. Could we have the set of questions for the poll? Yes, there we go. Is everyone able to see the poll? Okay. Okay, is everyone able to feed in the answers? Okay, I think we should be able to close the poll now. We should have all the responses, I guess. Okay, can we have the last 2 slides, please? Okay, I'd like to thank Amita for taking the time today and speaking to us and sharing this interesting journey of hers that she's been on. We'd also welcome all of you and your teams to join our upcoming event, which is around 26th of August. We welcome you all to join through Zoom, and it will basically be a follow-on event from our previous male allyship event that took place sometime last month. I would also urge you to follow WooMag on LinkedIn for any further announcements and notifications. And do feel free to contact us to learn more about us. And yeah, Amita has also shared her website where you can go look at some of her products. And I think Pranav has already sent in the link to the shop that she was talking about in Singapore, where you can go and access all her upcycled products in Singapore. So thank you everyone for joining. It was,
Thank you.
thanks Amita. It was nice
Thank
talking
you so
to you.
much.
Okay. See you everyone. Thanks. Bye.